Behind the Curtain with Jack Burkman.
Welcome back. Remember, if you want to take it behind the curtain, you call us 703-795-5364, 703-795-5364. Operator standing by 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Coming now into the 20th century, not the 21st, the 20th. That's far enough for me. Taking your emails at jackburkman2016 at gmail. Same number, same email. If you know anything about the Seth Rich murder mystery, what a topic here. B.T.C. McAllister joins us. For those of you who don't know her, and that's probably only a few, she's a contributor at The Federalist, PJ Media, and Daily Wire. D.C., welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Such a great name. It almost sounds like a stage name. Let me say this now. Have you seen this Gillette ad? They basically, with this ad, they are suggesting that all men somehow are terrible, are sexual predators, need to be controlled, need to be watched, need to watch each other. The left has warned us for years about stereotypes, and now it would seem to me they make the biggest stereotype of all, men. Half the population. Am I right?
You are. It doesn't sound like good marketing strategy for a company that's trying to target men to buy their products.
They're not selling to women. Gillette does. I mean, they sell maybe a few things to women, but I would think they're 93% male products, right?
Right. Yeah, and they think that they're calling men to be more conscious driven in order to be better and be the best that you can be is now driven by a feminism ideal, and Gillette has glammed onto this kind of woke notion, and it's backfiring, I believe.
You know, of course, yes, we have to stop sexual harassment and all those things, but all of this has become part and parcel of a much bigger, more dangerous issue in the society, and that is the terrible rise of feminism. And to me, all of this, when you talk to young women in big cities, if you ask a young girl in a big city like Washington or New York or Boston what's on her mind, she doesn't say sexual harassment. She doesn't say workplace opportunity. You know what she says? I can't find a man. Find me a rich man. They say that more now than they did 40 years ago. Is that your experience?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people ultimately want good relationships. They want relationships. And the sad thing is, with the breakdown of the family, a lot due to modern feminism, people are not finding the kind of companionship that they want. And a sad thing also is that by tearing down masculinity, femininity is not finding its complement. And we need men to be men in order for us to truly be women. But this isn't the way that intersectional feminism today is going. It wants to tear down men because it's a power dynamic. And they see white men in particular, but men as being at top of the hierarchical structure, and the patriarchy still reigns, and that they need to be pulled down and judged as a collective.
Women and men aren't the same thing, right?
You're all guilty.
Women and men aren't the same thing. I mean, I've watched for years, and I'm a traditional guy. I've watched for years women in politics. I mean, you know how stressful it is for a woman to run for Congress? You know how hard that is on a woman's body? Men and women aren't the same thing. The male is a rough, tough animal. You can throw him here, throw him down. He gets up the next morning and runs and jumps and does things. A woman's not like that, right? I mean, they're not the same animal.
No, I mean, equality in society between the sexes is equality before the law, equality and people not standing in the way of your opportunities, not making your opportunities for you. But men and women, by nature, by how they react to things and respond in their different roles, are very different. And they're good in both their roles and both their natures. We don't need to be like the other in order to be equal, but this notion of equality has gone.
I love that. We don't need to be like the other to be equal. I like that. I like that because God gave us a Bible and God gave us rules where he set out men and women to be equal but different, right?
Right.
Equal but different.
Well, we have equal value, we have equal meaning and purpose, and we have equal attributes that he has given us as human beings, rational, emotional, and this, moral. But we have equal legal rights, as human beings. But we do not have, but to force one into the mold of the other is to degrade the sex itself.
I mean, think about like when I went to law school in the 80s, where it was really transformative. Like we had a Georgetown Law, I think in 1988, the class was like 22% female, and that was considered at the time an enormous amount. But yet I could see how hard it is on a woman to do something like that because, they get out of school, they're 25, 26 years old, then they have to go to a law firm, then they're in debt, then they need to work 5 or 6 years, then the society expects them to be a mom and have children. I mean, the mountain, my mother said 35 years ago, she said, America will be all screwed up in the future, and the reason is that young girls won't know what they're supposed to be. And she's exactly right, isn't she?
Well, she is. I mean, we've lost our way, and women have been told you can do it all and have it all, and we're finding, it's very difficult to do it all and have it all. And instead of really taking a look at ourselves and our values, and we are turning it back on men and saying, men, you have to be equal with us and carry the same exact loads. And so now men are burdened with raising households and working, and a lot of times divorced, with paying a lot of child support to women who have left them. So it's a mess, and it's all this buying and competitive nature of power that's going on instead of really working together.
But of course, the losers are women, right? If you watch television, you think women are winning, but of course they're losing. They're losing big time. They're winning on the world of CNN, but 90% of American women are losing in a catastrophic way. Do you agree?
Well, they are, but I think we're all losing. I think men are losing too. Everyone's suffering, and women think that they're not, but yeah, they are, and so are men, because there's been a disruption in this fundamental relationship that is the building blocks of society.
Where do you see this going, D.C.? Where does all this go? Is any of this going to improve? In other words, so the feminists have hijacked the Me Too movement and taken it into the stratosphere. So something that starts out good, getting the bad guys, the Harvey Weinsteins and the Kevin Spaceys and all that stuff, get the bad guys. But now it goes much further than that. And now they want to get everybody. And now they want to look back 55 years. And we're going to sack Dustin Hoffman for something that happened in 1969 and all that stuff. It gets crazy. Where is all this going?
I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, because you're having a coalescing of group dynamics fighting each other. And politically and socially, this is going to cause a breakdown of the structures in society that save us from a more tyrannical type governmental structure. So politically, it's very dangerous. Socially, it's just going to lead people to more isolation, more dysfunction, more pathologies, and it's also going to create more backlash from men. It's going to cause conflict. Conflict will be the result, and out of that conflict and out of those ashes will reform. But I think we're going to have to go down the bad path. Things
like the Me Too movement, one of the ill effects is they kind of separate further men from women. So, and many people will say I'm a sexist for saying this, but take a law firm. I'm a lawyer, so I know those environments where you have legal secretaries and paralegals. Now, for most of these women, if they're single, one of the only chances they have in their lives to rise or do something is effectively to marry a lawyer. Now, while we all oppose sex harassment, the effect of all this is we're keeping them apart because men become afraid even to talk to them in the work environment. So the men will go out and get other women, but the big losers, of course, are the secretaries and the paralegals because you take away what they need. Do you agree?
Well, this has been one of the problems in the workplace with this, is that men are afraid to talk to women, so they're not associating with women. They're not pulling women into the conferences. They're not hiring the women.
They're scared of them.
They don't trust the women.
They're afraid because,
there's a breakdown.
I had a member of Congress tell me the other day, he said, I'm afraid of all this stuff. He said, I never once discriminated on the basis of gender, but now I'm afraid to hire women, certainly beautiful women, because somebody's going to tell me I'm harassing. So now the office is all male.
Exactly.
Except the scheduler. That's it. Other than that, it's male.
It's also breaking down, not just in the office, but just in relationships. I mean, you feel awkward and men don't trust you. And, it's a breakdown in relationships again. And we work best when we work together. And instead, we don't trust each other. And that causes all kinds of path dysfunction.
D.C. McAllister, contributor at The Federalist, PJ Media, and The Daily Wire. This Gillette thing, I'll tell you, maybe it's time to boycott Gillette. We'll be thinking about that. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
the stories and controversies that no one talks about, but everyone should know about.
Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking.
Behind the Curtain with Jack Burkman.
Welcome back. Remember, if you want to take it behind the curtain, you call us 703-795-5364, 703-795-5364. Operator standing by 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Taking your emails now as we come into the 20th century, not the 21st, but the 20th. Jack Burkman 2016 at Gmail. 2016 at Gmail. Same number, same email. If you know anything about the Seth Rich murder mystery, we are investigating. The Profiling Project is investigating. It will never quit on the Rich family, never quit on the city of Washington. On we go. We will fight the good fight. Joining us now, Michael Dougherty, director at the National Cybersecurity Society, and a board member at Snoop Wall, the global leader in affordable breach protection. I love that, Michael. Snoop Wall, welcome.
Hey, how are you? Thanks.
That's a catchy. Nice to have you. I don't think we've ever had you before, Michael.
I don't think so.
Well, so many things. I mean, privacy. This is a big libertarian show, and on this program, we hate the NSA and we hate the FBI and we hate all these data gatherers out there. But one of the pet peeves that has really caught my attention, and this is something you probably know a lot about, TVs and smart TVs. The televisions we buy are collecting all kinds of data on us, and because of computer chips or whatever, and the people we buy these TVs from apparently are selling this data to a variety of entities. It could include China, Russia, Chinese companies, European companies, the U.S. government, God knows who else. Am I right?
Well, of course, because that's everyone's learned those little chips are really powerful, and everyone's learned that is going to make them money, and people think it's free. So our flat panels, we're learning, are really inexpensive because now manufacturers are seeing them as an annuity business. Get the TV in the house. Then you can have a revenue stream selling the information you glean from the television of what they watch, where it's located, what the habits are, what upsell programs you can sell. And so, it's a variability between manufacturers at this point, and it's a variability in what you can control. Your name and address aren't going there.
Why don't we do we need laws that simply block the transfer of this kind of data?
At some point it's hard to, it's tough because what happens is we're giving up our rights, and it's hard for laws to tell you what you can't do. And we are checking the boxes.
Why don't we just start blocking the sale of data like that? We could criminalize the sale of data. Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
No. It's a little over the top because, look, a knife can cut, and it can cut a fillet or it can kill. And throwing the baby out the bathwater and data analysis would hurt efficiency and product improvement and
well, but is there baby? Is there any baby, or is it really all bathwater? I mean, that's the question.
No, there's both. That's my very point. It is both, and going to one extreme of an all or none is not going to work with the both. And that's the trouble. But we do have to do something, and whether it be through antitrust, because let's face it, Congress for the last 100 years has been built to be a nothing. Congress has created these regulators that have full power. And they have immunity, and they have no accountability. And in this country, we have regulation that is outrageous.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, scaling back the regulars, scaling back the deep state. If I were president, all of that would be my top priority. That's a topic for another day. But let's look at these TVs. So I walk into the store, and like a lot of people, I want to buy a cheap TV. So I buy a $500 TV as opposed to a $3,000 plasma screen or what have you. And now, as it turns out, the cheaper TVs actually throw off more data than the others. Is that right?
I don't think necessarily because they're cheaper, but I mean, a smart television is going to throw off data, and whether the company is going to use the data to manufacture is really a choice of the manufacturer.
How does this work? So, not to interrupt, but I buy a TV, I take it home. Now, how are they getting the data? How does all this? Tell me how this works mechanically.
Well, I mean, it's all wireless. It's all, it's all like GPS and wireless type of technology that knows where things are and has data available. And then when you turn on those features of hooking up your smart television features, you are going to click a box and you're not going to read the fine print, and you're going to scroll down and you're going to miss the whole thing, and it's all or nothing, and you're not going to pay attention, and you're going to give them permission.
What happens if we have a federal statute?
And it doesn't have to be your TV, man. That's your cell phone too. So
what if we just enact a federal statute that says when you purchase any of these 18 products and enumerate them, you automatically own the data and no one can use it? What about that?
That would be a great solution. I don't know that it'll ever happen. Because you've got Congress and you've got lobbyists and you've got these companies now they're wealthier than most countries that are building massive places in town. So I don't, you're not going to get, I don't know if you're going to get any Democrats to do it. I mean, or Republicans. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think we have to empower people more than just, clicking on the box. We are clicking on the box. And we're not getting it, and the media and Congress isn't educating us and protecting us. We're learning this after the cow's already out of the barn.
Can we educate consumers to somehow disarm the GPS in devices?
Well, it's going to kill your whole phone. I mean, it's all codependent. So you're not no. People use that. I mean, you can't just disarm that. They're not. There's certain you can go in and disarm some things, and you have to go down and be motivated enough to learn what that is, phone model by phone model versus what you've got. But it's not. Unfortunately, there's nothing black and white, and the cloud is.
Do we need a campaign of fear? Do we need a libertarian campaign of fear to make the public afraid of all this so they react? Is that what we need? Maybe a good campaign of fear.
Smart enough to understand. I mean, you can scare people that are smart enough to be scared.
That's a good point.
I mean, but you have to. How are you going to get the platform to make them afraid? We don't have a media anymore that does any true investigative journalism or informs people. We have a media that thinks that everyone that works at Facebook and Amazon and Google is a wonderful person. So you should be afraid, and you should be afraid because of what the minority of bad people can do. Most of smartphones and all these most of the time are great, but they've also empowered.
You know where this is going, Michael. You know where all this is going. It all feeds into a broader conclusion, don't you? It feeds into a broader conclusion that technology is incompatible with democracy. Is that where this is going?
No, I don't think so. I mean, no, I don't think so. I think, and plus we don't have a democracy, and we don't have a government that operates like that. We're still because the U.S. government hasn't been a democracy or even a republic since the early 1900s. And we don't know that because there's not a civics book that has been honestly teaching us what our government's like. What we're taught is 19th century government operations. It just doesn't exist, and that's why people don't know. And the government likes to have people not know. So they're sold something that doesn't exist, which creates this anarchy and split in the population. And that's fine with them. Keep everyone divided and conquered, and then run through the middle of the football field. And that's what the D.C. swamp does. And that's why they're freaking out that Trump's president.
Does Trump Michael, I think we got to go. Michael Dougherty, so sorry. I wish we had more time to keep talking. Michael's director of the National Cyber Security Society and a board member at Snoop Wall, the global leader in affordable breach protection. And I will tell you, behind the curtain, we'll stay on this issue. We will be watching the watchers. We will be watching the people who watch you. Apple, Google, Yahoo, watch out. Because we are watching you. Thanks.
This is a universe where everything is depicted as a Washington Post political cartoon.
Behind the Curtain with Jack Burkman.
Remember, if you want to take it behind the curtain, you call us, 703-795-5364, 703-795-5364. Taking your emails, Jack Burkman 2016 at Gmail, 2016 at Gmail. Same number, same email. if you know anything about the Seth Rich murder mystery. Now, remember, when I tell you this every week, we want to help you. If you have an issue your local press won't cover, if you have an issue that needs to go to the White House or Congress, we'll do it for you at no charge, at no cost. You come to us, and behind the curtain, we'll help you. 703-795-5364. Operators standing by 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday. Well, joining us now, Britton Ladd, digital and business strategy consultant, former manager at Amazon Fresh and Forbes.com, contributor to talk all about all of this stuff with Trump and the post office, USPS. Welcome. Welcome, Britton.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be on the show.
Good to have you. Britton with two T's, we'll say, instead of one. Now, there's a lot going on. So Obama had his issues with changing the post office. Bush had his issues, and now Trump has his issues. And it would seem to me that these issues all fall into different categories. Let me see if I can give you an accurate synopsis. Let me see if I can sum this up for the viewers here, and you can tell me. You're the expert. You tell me if I'm right. Trump, of course, wants to generally reform and make the post office more efficient like the others did, but he's very concerned about this overnight and two-day mail and those things where the post office is charging $3 or $4 and FedEx is charging $12 or $13 or $20, and he feels, why are we losing money? And they say, well, the post office doesn't do as good a job, and Trump says, let's have them do a better job. Let's have them compete with FedEx and UPS, and let's do it that way. But now, and this issue splits conservatives because some of them say, yeah, that's great, make it more efficient and compete. But other conservatives, and maybe I'm in this camp, say, why is the post office in this business at all, and why does the government want to run this business, right?
And that's true. I actually agree with how you just stated that, yes.
And so tell me, give me the lay of the land. Take me through this. What's going on with all this stuff?
Well, here's really what the issue is. So President Trump called out Amazon specifically several months ago. And the argument that Trump has against Amazon is he believes Amazon is taking advantage of the post office. So Trump asked that a task force be put together, be assigned. The task force last week came back with their results, the results of their analysis. And what they say is, you know what? Amazon isn't taking advantage of the post office. Amazon is not losing any money moving packages for Amazon and other e-commerce providers. It's that the post office doesn't do a very good job of actually pricing their services to take account of all of their actual costs. So in essence, what's going on is between 2007 and 2018, the post office lost around $69 billion.
Billion with a B. That's
billion with a B. That's
holy moly.
The task force. Yes, it's a gigantic number. And I do agree with you that there are many individuals who say, well, why is the government in this business at all? Well, you just are going to struggle to get rid of the post office. And so recommendations that came back from the task force are several things that I wrote about recently in Forbes, where I made the argument Amazon should run the post office. Amazon is really the solution and not the problem. And that's why I titled the article, President Trump, Amazon should run the USPS.
So you're with me. In other words, you want to scrap all or most of the post office, right, and turn it. You want to privatize it. You're with me.
Well, I absolutely believe in privatization, but that is really a big leap. So I've had conversations with executives at the USPS, members of government have reached out to me, and really what they like about my suggestions are these. Number one, what the task force came back with was why not monetize the actual mailbox itself? So the USPS today has a monopoly, and only the USPS can put mail in your mailbox. So one of the things I recommended is why not sell the naming rights of a mailbox to Amazon and let Amazon design really what is a mailbox. Let Amazon define that. Let Amazon put their lockers in place. And through a contract extension, slowly but surely have Amazon start to introduce those things that will absolutely improve the customer experience.
See, let me tell you where I don't know anything about. I don't follow these issues. Let me tell you where my instincts go with this. If I were president, this is where my instincts would go. Like you, I believe in privatization and all that. We're on the same page ideologically. On the other hand, I'm a conservative and not an anarchist, and government has some functions. And I think basic delivery of mail should be a function of the federal government. It always has been. Where my mind goes is when you get into all these other things like 2-day mail and overnight, all these specialty things, or specialty in the last 30 years or so, those are things the post office really shouldn't be doing at all. Why not just have them do basic mail service and let everybody, and scrap their overnight and all that stuff and let everybody else do that? Does that just solve the problem?
No, it actually would make it far worse.
Now tell me why. Tell me why.
Well, in all honesty, the things that you don't want the post office being involved with, those are where the Postal Service would actually be making money. It's first-class mail, it's junk mail. That is decreasing rapidly. The post office just simply, or the Postal Service, I should say, doesn't make any money doing that. So really what you should be saying is, how do we create a business model where the Postal Service can actually become a major player in all things related to mail, but do so by making a profit? And I'm a conservative. I'm a capitalist. I want the post office to earn a profit. But in order to do that, they have to make some things that are...
Okay, but let me back up just a minute. What would be wrong? So if the post office just does basic mail and nothing else, what happens then? Explain to me why that's bad.
Well, the problem is the way the contracts are written, the Postal Service would have to maintain its current workforce. And so the Postal Service just does not have enough mail to move.
Okay.
They just don't. And
so it would lose money. It would lose money.
It would lose vast amounts.
So why does
of
it have, what contracts and why does it have to maintain the workforce?
Well, because it's the way the union contracts are written.
So can we bust them? Maybe the answer is to bust them. Can we bust them?
Well, that would be very challenging because the contract is actually backed up by laws that have been passed, years and years ago. So when the task force evaluated that, they stated it would be very challenging for the Postal Service to do anything with just mail.
What if Congress, by statute, scrapped it all and cut the postal workforce and just leaves them with basic mail and everything else goes to the private sector? What if you do that?
No, if you did that, absolutely, that would work. The challenge is there's no appetite for that. Republicans don't want to do it. Democrats don't want to do it. That's actually been discussed many times over the years, and it was never approved. So the things that I really recommend are things that could be implemented just by administrative changes. The Postal Service would have the authority to extend the contract to Amazon. The Postal Service would have has the authority to actually have Amazon have the naming rights to a mailbox, have Amazon take over many aspects. But here's the trick. By starting out slow, like I recommend, and small, at the end of 10 years, here's the goal. Give Amazon an opportunity to actually acquire many of the routes that the Postal Service has today, and then open it up to privatization as well. So I agree with you. We're just simply talking about a different way to eventually get there to where the government doesn't actually run the Postal
Basically, we're saddled by law with taking care of a bunch of people who otherwise have no utility, the postal workers. That's what I'm hearing. In other words, Congress has saddled they're basically welfare recipients. Is that what's going on?
There's really an argument where people do say that. The challenge is the postal workers really, they show up, they do their job. They're really at the mercy of the rules themselves. And I've had discussions with many postal workers. And what they have said to me is, we'd love it if Amazon ran the post office. We'd love it if Walmart ran the post office. So it's not that they want to do nothing, because they see the handwriting on the wall.
So who's fighting this then? Their union leaders. So the men aren't mad, but the men like it, but the union leaders don't. Is it the same old story?
It really is the same old story. It's the same thing that we've run into for the unions that work at the ports, work in the automotive industry, unions that work elsewhere. The workers are smart enough to realize there's a much better way to be doing all of this, And they, to their credit,
I get it. So the problem is that Trump's not a union buster. He can't be a union. He's not a union buster Republican. Maybe Reagan would be. Trump isn't. So that's correct. Not. Trump can't be the union buster. So Trump just skirts the issue altogether, and he comes up with these other ideas because he doesn't want to break the unions. So then we get into just efficiency-based ideas. Is that it?
Well, you certainly would gain a lot of efficiency by leveraging Amazon for many of these things.
I get it.
And remember, the goal is, how do you reduce costs? How do you actually make a profit? And the things that I recommend in my article and the things that I've heard the task force recommend would achieve that goal. So you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater is really what we're saying here.
Does Amazon want all that business? Do they want to do that?
If Amazon had the ability to run the Postal Service, the benefit to Amazon is worth billions and billions of dollars.
But then again, we're now turning more. That's almost like the privatizations of prisons, which maybe hasn't worked out so well. Some advantages, but maybe more disadvantages. Now we're over privatizing there because now Jeff Bezos can threaten the nation's mail supply whenever he wants, right? If he doesn't like if he doesn't like what Trump is doing, Bezos can wake up and say, "Mr. President, you stop doing what you're doing to Facebook, my friend over here, or I'm going to screw the mail." Could he do that? But he could,
no,
right?
He couldn't.
Why not?
No, he could. No, it's funny how you say that, but no, he couldn't.
Why not, though? Why not, though?
Well, because I recommend that the only way such an agreement should be reached is that the GAO have 100% oversight, as well as 2 independent consulting firms, and they, on a quarterly, semi-annual, annual basis, do random audits.
Okay, so you're talking about, but that's different. Okay, that's a good idea, but now that's different than what we said. That's not privatization. That's giving Amazon a government contract to do the mail, right? Now you're saying give them a government contract. That's a different thing altogether, right? That's like Lockheed Martin. You want to put them under contract.
Even if it was fully privatized, you would still be leveraging aspects of the federal government. Turning over the post office 100% to where it would be private would be a very challenging endeavor. So really what you're saying here and what I'm arguing is if you're going to privatize it or if you're going to contract Amazon, make sure there's full transparency so there's not a lot of people out there saying or thinking what you just stated.
Boy, Britton, you know this issue. Let me, you've explained this issue to me. I hear it discussed, but I never understand it. Now I do. Let me ask you this. Let's go over those numbers again. What is the post office lost? You were quoting me numbers. Let's talk about their losses one more time.
$69 billion between 2007 and 2018.
My God, they're losing. That's like $6-7 billion a year for the last 10 years that they're losing.
Correct. It's a staggering sum. And that's why I believe President Trump deserves credit for saying we have to figure this out. He may not have all the answers. The task force may not have returned everything he wanted. But President Trump is saying, my God, what are we doing here? Let's figure out a better way to do this.
Well, this is something this is something where there could be bipartisanship. I don't see any reason Pelosi can't join him on this. I mean, she's protecting her unions, right? I mean, I don't see any reason Democrats can't support this, right?
Correct. I really think this is one of those opportunities for Democrats and Republicans to get together and say, how do we make the Postal Service efficient? And one of the things I think President Trump should say, let's call Jeff Bezos and ask him this question. Jeff, how would Amazon run the Postal Service?
Why does it have to be Amazon? Now, maybe I just hate Bezos, but why not FedEx? Like, why can't we just bring it to FedEx? Why Amazon, though? Why do we keep going to Bezos?
Well, the challenge is this. FedEx is a shipper. UPS is a shipper. And the majority of changes taking place in the Postal Service is driven by e-commerce. And Amazon is the largest e-commerce company out there. So you could say we could have Amazon do 100%, or you could say, what if we have FedEx, UPS, Amazon, and maybe Walmart involved, or Microsoft, Amazon, FedEx, UPS. It doesn't just have to be exclusive to Amazon. But when I was asked to actually complete a research project on this, I looked at all kinds of companies who could step in and do it. And the only one I really had confidence in being able to do everything that's required to run the Postal Service really came from Amazon. Because remember, the Postal Service has a massive technology.
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing, don't you? You're kind of restating the argument on the floor of the Senate 100 years ago for the Sherman and Clayton Acts. The Antitrust Act. That's what you're almost making the case. The case you're making now almost corners them. You're almost arguing necessarily that Amazon is a monopolist. That if you throw this in, this very discussion almost proves ipso facto they're a monopolist, right? That's what it is.
No,
right?
I actually had a great discussion with the Department of Justice on Amazon several months ago. Amazon today only controls 4% of retail in the United States, 5% globally. The Department of Justice would not even consider Amazon a monopoly until Amazon controlled a minimum of 50% of all retail.
Well, if Amazon only has 4%, then how is it that they're so overwhelming in that space that it would go to them?
Well, the reason is because between November of this year, between Thanksgiving of this year and December 25th, 2 billion packages will be shipped. The Postal Service was never designed to move that type of volume.
Right, but back to the question, you say Amazon has 4%. Who's got the other 96? Is it that diffuse that no one else has more than 4%?
Oh, yeah, correct. There's massive numbers of companies that are now in e-commerce.
Okay.
So Amazon has the best ability, the best system, the best logistics. So that's
I just
why
hate Jeff Bezos. That's all. I'm just my personal feelings are getting in the way here. I don't like Bezos.
It really is. And Jeff Bezos and Donald Trump doesn't like Jeff Bezos. And that's why I say in my article, Donald Trump, pick up the phone and ask Jeff Bezos the question, how would Amazon run the Postal Service? There's a tremendous amount that could be learned, just as you mentioned earlier. Democrats and Republicans absolutely should get together on this issue. Let's solve this thing, because a lot of people are relying upon the post office, but millions of people are affected by the fact that the post office has such a bad service and loses billions annually. This is one of those stories, one of those opportunities that don't come along that often, but it's something that can be solved, I guarantee it.
Kind of final question here. Are we sure that, has Bezos ever commented on this? Has anyone at Amazon ever commented or expressed a desire?
Well, I used to work for Amazon, and when I worked for Amazon, this is one of the topics I brought up.
Amazon. Okay, got it. You worked for Amazon. Got it.
So I recommended. So I also recommended to Amazon to acquire Whole Foods. I did that originally in 2013.
I hope you got a bonus.
No. I wasn't working for Amazon at the time. I was completing my third master's degree, and I wrote a research paper. And so when I worked for Amazon, this is one of the topics I brought up. And to the credit of Amazon, they always said the same thing. That's absolutely something we would be interested in talking about, because Amazon knows there's a better way. And Amazon's not trying to replace the Postal Service. Amazon is all about efficiency and customer experience. And Amazon knows that if they were involved at a higher level, they would absolutely be able to improve the customer experience. But they also know they're expert at efficiency and last mile, and they absolutely could create a profit for the Postal Service.
Britton Ladd, Britton with 1T, digital and business strategy consultant, former manager at Amazon, Amazon Fresh, and contributor at Forbes, and probably the most knowledgeable person in the world on the U.S. Post Office. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
All the stories and controversies that no one talks about, but everyone should know about.
Why don't you get a toupee with some brains in it?
Behind the Curtain with Jack Burkman.
And now from Boise, Idaho, of all places, Melissa Levick joins us, one of the nation's great entrepreneurs, great female entrepreneurs, and she is going to talk about different kind of topic altogether, and that is how to create more female businesses. One of the things we're seeing under President Trump, there has been an increase in female businesses. There's been a huge increase in African-American businesses, almost as large an increase in Hispanic businesses. Just about every demographic you can think of, and we've talked about so many of these themes, has grown in the last 2 years almost miraculously. In the case of the African-Americans, exponentially. Some of the best news for African-Americans in American history. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Jack.
My pleasure. But of all the growth in entrepreneurship, women kind of still lag behind. And I know this, you know this, I know this from personal experience. I think I've been in business for 22 years in my own company. I can tell you in those 22 years, I think I've had a grand total of 3 companies, maybe of 3 of 500 or 3 of 600 that are run by women. And that's about 1%. And we cast a pretty broad net. Is that consistent with your experience? Do you see changes? What do you see going on out there?
Absolutely. You know, it is a growing number, but statistically 17% of startup founders are female. So it is pretty small. We're not quite at the equilibrium that we would like to be. And also, female founders only get 2% of VC funding. About 79% goes to all male teams, and the difference between the two is kind of the mix, a male-female team. But there is a little bit of inequity there in terms of how many women are actually starting their own companies and also getting funded to grow their companies.
See, that's really the key. You're enlightening us, because that's really the key number, that percentage of VC funding. Just for our audience, a VC is a venture capitalist. That's a person who brings money to a business. So that's really the key. So that could be the key to a lot of this stuff, like the same thing with black businesses or Hispanic businesses. We may have the business starts, same with women, but if they don't get that funding, those businesses could die in 12 months anyway. So the real number might not be the number of starts, but that percentage of VC funding. And that 2% is low enough, it might be the same as it was 40 years ago.
Yeah, it is. It's still pretty low. Deal count in terms of how many female-led companies that are actually getting investment is at a historic high. It's at 4.4%. But that still is a very low number. It's only 358 women have actually pitched VCs. So the percentage is higher, but that's because the overall number is still low, right? And so, like you said, this is a key differentiator. You can start a business, but it's really difficult to stay in business or grow a business without growth funding. And so it does come down to, we need more women to start them, but we also need people to invest in women as well.
I guess you have now. What would you say the main reason for that is? That there just aren't enough women pitching VCs? Is there sexism in the VC culture? Is it that almost all VCs are white males? I guess they are. Is that what's going on there? Is that true?
I think it's all of the above. I do. I think that, we are in the past 2 years, in light of the political environment, in light of the Me Too movement, in light of a bunch of different, it's been kind of a big surge for women in society in the past 2 years. And a lot has come to light in terms of the sexism that is there. I do think that less women also start businesses still. And I think that is on us to really, dig in, take risks, trust in ourselves, start our own businesses. And also it does come down to you're right. The majority of investors are white males. The majority of investors don't understand a lot of the businesses that women are starting and don't also see kind of the huge potential behind it. I'll give an example right now of where I'm at, right? I'm starting a boxing studio.
Melissa, I wish we're going to bring you back. Our producer, we are out of time, but I want to bring you back. We got to continue this. We're already lighting up the boards here with a lot of questions in Facebook. We got to bring you back if we can. Melissa Levitt, great entrepreneur from Idaho. Thank you, Melissa, so much. We'll see you next week.